Here we are exactly 3 months later from the release of Dying Light 2. Players are left asking so many questions. What exactly has occurred since release? Is the game on an upward trend or heading downwards? How much cut content has been discovered? Are players still even playing Dying Light 2 right now? Does the game live up to the expectations of the original? Has the game been forgotten about, and is it going to fall down the abyss of titles that players will not come back to? Will Dying Light 2 forever be that game that you put onto your shelf to collect dust? Or are you gonna brush it off, polish it, clean it a little bit? Or are you gonna be like this guy right here? This video will take a look at everything that is unfolding right in front of us. There are numerous red flags that the community is vocal about. There are also some things that Techland is kind of just skating on by. But lastly, and more importantly, this will overall be a discussion about the current state of Dying Light 2. Now that we have that, let's begin. Let's head back to the first month. Players were enjoying the game, and a majority were still playing it. Out of a poll of 31,000 people, 62% of you stated exactly that. The first month, which feels like the community was thoroughly enjoying Dying Light 2. Dying Light 2 content on YouTube and also this channel was at an all-time high. Google Trend results massive upon its release, which honestly isn't something specifically catered to Dying Light 2. This is something that occurs with every single major video game release nowadays. You get a massive uptick during the game's quote-unquote honeymoon phase, and then once everything starts to settle down, it is now left to the community and also the developers to ensure a relationship that is mutually beneficial, to say the least. The developers go, they make content, the community buys and plays that content, everybody's happy. It's a win-win. But what had happened here is Dying Light 2 launched in a poorly optimized state. Co-op was something that wasn't working for the longest time, and it was a massive issue for many players.
What the fuck?
Oh! The Deathloop animation actually took a very long time for it to be fixed. But since its release, Techland has been committed to fixing the game. They made weekly updates to ensure its success, which is great, but it didn't fix a lot of the issues that the game had when it launched. No amount of weekly patching can fix the lacking amount of endgame content that is not in Dying Light 2. The massive February update that the game got was faction-inspired outfits, which, mind you, didn't actually work for the longest time, and aside from looking cool and having drip, these outfits offered little to no reason to hop back onto the game. Remember that 38% from earlier? Do you really think those purely cosmetic outfits are worthwhile for these individuals to launch back on? No, it's not worth it. And this is where the community and content creators started to step in. As time went on and the longer it does, the backbone of what's keeping this game alive and people in the loop is YouTube and Discord. Creators making entertaining content pushing the community to engagement is working and worthwhile for them. Community members hopping onto Discord and chatting about Dying Light 2 and its future is what's exciting. And yes, before you go and say,
Oni, you're biased, you're a content creator.
I know that, I'm just being realistic with you. I've been covering this game for nearly over 2 years now. I know the ins and outs of what works and what doesn't, and despite my commitment to making Dying Light 2 content, I've always been open, and I'll tell you straight up, I don't play this game anymore.
No more.
Because I have no reason to. There is nothing left to do at this current moment with the current state of Dying Light 2. And I'm just one example of that. This is why so many YouTubers in the community are going and playing other games. People are trying to expand to other content and find something more worthwhile, because what Dying Light 2 had to offer at launch was so minuscule. It was very disappointing and really underwhelming. The game that was showcased in E3 2019 is not the game that launched in February of 2022. And as time goes on, the original performs at a higher player count than the sequel. The game that launched in 2015, 7 years ago, has more concurrent players than the ambitious sequel that launched in 2022. Take it for what you want, but that doesn't speak very highly about how it's performing and what reception has been. Sales may be higher when comparing the two at that same time frame. Dying Light 2 ultimately sold much better than the original 3 months in. There's no doubt about that. Do you know how far you have to go down in order to find Dying Light 2 on Twitch? It's so far down, 169 viewers. First off, nice, but 169 viewers. That is lacking for a game that came out 3 months ago. The game that was spent months being promoted to have this engaging story, a meaningful choice and consequence system, was simply not there. And looking back at everything that Techland had to say, whether it was the dying to knows or that whole 500 hour to fully beat the game, it's just not true. And it's really disappointing to see this because they just shot themselves in the foot with some of their decisions. Once players got their hands on the game, did what they had to do, they had no reason to return. And the next thing you know, we're months into its release. And then many players are left asking, now what? Next thing you know, we're on month 2 of Dying Light 2. The updates continued, which I'll say, it's a massive plus, and it does show that Techland is committed to fixing this game in the long run. I don't see an Anthem situation occurring here. I don't see a Battlefield 2042 situation or a Cyberpunk situation occurring either. I mean, this game got a new game plus way quicker than Cyberpunk. It should be noted that right before Dying Light 2 hit month 2, literally the biggest game of all time, Elden Ring, came out, which blew everybody and everything surrounding it away. Elden Ring, a game that was finished working on day one, aside from some performance issues, is now the front runner of gaming in 2022. And Dying Light 2 had to essentially go up against that. And how did Dying Light 2 respond, you ask? Parkour challenges. Why play Elden Ring when you could do parkour challenges that no one asked for? It really makes me wish that this game just got delayed until June and they could have spent so much more time working on it and there would have been no competition. Like right now, we're in April, May. What AAA game is coming out? There's nothing on the horizon. It's just so many creative decisions that as time goes on, it makes you really wonder how much cut content is there? How much did Techland want to do but couldn't because of deadlines?
It's time to stop!
It just feels like there's a whole section of the game erased completely. You do broadcast and bam, the game goes into speedrun mode and then you're almost at the end. But since we're on the topic of cut content, Sammy,
all this guy does is talk about Dying Light 2. That's it. Every single day. He wakes up, he talks about it, he goes to bed, he talks about it. I just want it to stop.
I don't even know where to begin with this. First off, thanks to Bub, Alexander, and Best Gamer Ali, and so many more for what I'm about to reference right now. I truly don't know how to even begin this section. There's so much. Like, do I start with Elysium that has full quest lines and dialogues and new locations in the game files that we can't access? And it's questionable whether or not we're ever going to be able to play this? Should I talk about the hives or the horses or the animals or the missing airship? There was also a Fury mode that was once in the game that gives us infected Aiden and allows you to play as him as you slowly progress more and more through your infection? Or should I mention the barricading? Because at one point, you could barricade buildings. Or should we talk about the shield and the personal stats that were here at one point? Or the mountain of unused AI that they had planned for this game? You could have used any one of these instead of Gerard getting stung by a bee again. It's exhausting, it really is. The more you dive deeper into it, the more you discover about what's not in there. There's so much. I didn't even talk to you about the arena or horde mode. There's just so much gone and erased that it looks like they had planned at one point. I truly believe that the game that we got is not the game that they wanted to release. It's as simple as that. It's not the game the community's playing anymore. A poll shows that only 34% are still playing 2 months in. That really goes and speaks about the current state of Dying Light 2. Compare the numbers from month 1 to month 2. That's drastic. Compare the Steam charts again. It's major. They need substantial updates to their content. They need a PvP mode. They desperately needed that new game plus at launch. They needed reasons for the players to come back and find new ways for progression. They needed to be more rewarding for exploration and so much more. Like I said, a simple delay could have probably really benefited this game in the long run, but we'll never know. But now we're gonna go and dive into month 3, which did introduce New Game Plus, and we're gonna see what it looks like right now. And I just wanna say, I've been very clear about my thoughts, and I typically use these monthly reviews as opportunities to spark discussion and engagement amongst the community. So if you wanna share your thoughts, you can do that now. I also use this as an opportunity for community members to speak their mind. Last time I asked Aussie GG to come on. This time we're asking Noviex 2 simple questions. Are you satisfied with the current state of Dying Light 2?
At the moment, not really. As anyone and their mom would tell you, there just isn't any post-game content. I feel like they're relying too much on people having to replay their game. New Game Plus is coming, so that may or may not fix it. To be honest, I'm just waiting for the next DLC. New Game Plus isn't really gonna make me stay, considering the fact that, well, you ain't gonna keep your Night Runner tools once you do it. And the reason is they don't want you to break the flow and dynamic of the game, which I don't think is even a problem at all. I've played the game with stronger gravity, and it made it feel better. I don't see a point of being protective about it, but who knows, people might disagree with me and actually like the fact that you don't keep your stuff.
Why do you think the player count for the original is higher than of the sequel?
You're mostly just comparing it to old fine wine to grape juice. Dying Light has been out for how many years? 7 years, I think. I'm losing count already, I'm getting old. So it has a lot more stuff to do, obviously, even after you beat the game. And well shit, Dying Light 2 just came out a couple months ago, so we still have to give it time until it fully has all the content. So in the meantime, just go on Dying Light 1 with your 83,000 damage automatic shotgun and chug some eggnog on the side.
And he's right, there's a preference at the moment for the original because of what it has to offer. Dying Light 2 is lacking in many areas. I feel like they should just go and use the original as a guide on what to do for the sequel. It's a win-win. But we need to move on, and we need to talk about the massive Dying Light 2 update that we just got. And I already know what some of you are gonna ask. Did it live up to the hype? Yeah, actually, it's a pretty solid update. It added New Game Plus, which is a ton of fun. There are some bold choices when it comes to that game mode. Night Runner tools are being excluded from being carried over, which I do understand because you can kind of break the game with the paraglider and the grappling hook depending on how quickly you move through certain missions. The Lawan interaction with Hakon is a perfect example of that. This update also added roaming volatiles, increased the spawn rate of banshees, they added an FOV slider for consoles, only next gen of course. The update is giving you a reason to revisit Villador and Central Loop, which the updates that occurred in month 1 and month 2 were very lacking. You had no reason to get on to Dying Light 2. Like we stated, outfits and parkour challenges are not a substantial reason to boot it back up. But the goal of the April update was to fix a lot of the ongoing issues. Co-op issues have mainly been ironed out, there are some little kicks here and there. In addition, the quality of life has gotten much better, and more importantly, they added a good amount of endgame content for you to check out. They added 30 more inhibitors, platinum objectives for parkour challenges, a new legendary weapon tier was added, gold encounters were added, and also the big one, the mutated infected event, which I honestly wasn't expecting to come out. It just kinda just hit the mark. The big update was released on the 27th, 3 days before April ends. So it's good to see that they are sticking to their roadmap and stuff is not being shifted around or being delayed yet. The mutated infected event is on a much smaller scale than expected, but the push of so much content all at once makes me really hopeful for the future of Dying Light 2. After all the interviews and updates that we've gotten from Techland so far, this is by far the best one, and it now sets an example of what future updates should be. This is a proper example of Techland listening to the community. Granted, it did take a while, but it did come out. Personally, I think Techland just needs to be churning out content monthly. Big, massive updates like this one need to be the norm. People are excited to be playing again. The Steam charts right now are an example of that. Look at the shift between Dying Light 1 and Dying Light 2. You didn't see these numbers in month 2. My next fear is that once all of this has settled down with New Game Plus and this update and time goes on, what is the next thing that we're waiting for? It's most likely going to be the first DLC, which is intended to come out in June. And if I were Techland, I'd be pooping my pants right now because depending on how this DLC performs, will speak very highly or poorly on Techland. If it's good, great, players are excited for what's coming next. If the DLC is lackluster and fails to offer a compelling story or bring a boost to endgame content, it's going to be a very, very long 5 years. Reception to patch 1.3 seems to be very positive. Dying Light 2 was off to a rocky start 3 months ago. Tech1 is in a position where the game desperately needs more content, and they're working on it. Players need to have that reason to be excited to load up Dying Light 2 again. They hit the mark with the April update, but now we need to see what comes next. And don't forget, by the way, as time goes on, more and more cut content, it's being revealed, it's in the game files, it's being leaked, it's being data mined, and it's being thrown out there. Is that content going to be making its way into the game? Is Elysium going to be what players are expecting? There are still so many questions left over for Dying Light 2. And in order to figure out some of those questions, I actually went ahead and interviewed Timon Smektala. This interview will be uploaded on Saturday, May 7th. It's filmed, it's done, it's a good one, friends. We meme, we talk about Danny DeVito.
I'm the trash man.
And I hope to catch you there on Saturday to go and spark up another discussion and keep things engaging in here. As always, those are my thoughts. Please share yours down below in the comment section. In the meantime, go ahead and watch some of these videos right here, and I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.